yes,
by one of these Zionist terror gangs. Would you tell the listeners what happened there on that day 60 years ago?
Well, my brother was then serving with the Arab Legion, and although I had no direct contact with that sad business of the hotel, so far as I know, people were blown up, both British, Arab, and Jewish as well. They seemed not to worry who they were blowing
up. Almost 100 people were killed.
So long as they blew up a lot of English, they didn't mind losing some of their own, I think.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we do hear a lot of cant and hypocrisy, and the use of this word terrorism is very loose and promiscuous. For example, Mr. Netanyahu, who probably will be the Prime Minister of Israel again before much longer, such has been the reverberation of the failure of Israel in the war, Mr. Netanyahu attended last month a ceremony to commemorate a plaque on the spot where the King David Hotel bomb went off. And he made a speech there in which he said that it's important to distinguish between acts of terrorism and acts of genuine resistance. And he's right about that, of course. He wants to call everything that's done to further the cause of the Palestinians under occupation or the Lebanese under occupation as acts of terrorism, and every act that was committed by these gangs as legitimate acts of resistance. Would you care to say something about the inherent hypocrisy in that?
Oh, yes. You see, if terrorism is by a state, they think it's all right. But if it's by individuals who've got nothing at all except probably a .303 rifle and a hand grenade, or a suicide bombing arrangement, then they think that's terrorism. But if you look at the thing in the centre, there's far more terrorism done by the state of Israel than ever was done by the Arab people against them. And it's the Arabs, of course, who suffered their loss of land and all the murderous activities that have gone down the last 60 years. So I don't think what they've got to complain about.
Did you see any of the action that took place in the run-up to and the aftermath of the declaration of the State of Israel, the Arab villages and towns that were emptied and the people rushed out and fled and became the refugees now that are living in camps here in the Lebanon just a few miles from me?
No, I had no first-hand sighting of any of these things, because on the station where I was serving, I had a magnificent station commander who made such arrangements that we were not attacked. You see, they don't attack heavy targets. They attack soft targets. Now, I did lose some colleagues a bit further down the road, but I wasn't within sight.
Now, Wing Commander, your role presumably was overflying and protecting the British garrison there, yes?
No, I was just the engineer serving the pilots who did so.
Yes. Now, it's been my experience, tell me if I'm wrong, that the British personnel who served as policemen in Palestine and military personnel, like yourself, have had, over the intervening half-century nearly, or in fact more than half-century, have had an enduring sympathy with the Palestinian case in this, not least because they were the ones who were the targets of the Zionist gangs, who were led, of course, by two future prime ministers of Israel, Mr. Begin, who was associated with one of the gangs, and Mr. Shamir, who was associated with the other major gang. Would it be fair to say that the majority of your comrades from that time in the British mandate and in the British administration are sympathizers with the justice of the Palestinian cause?
Not just the majority, the lot.
I certainly have never heard a person who served in Palestine with the British administration ever express any other point of view to me.
Yes, I think one of the sad things is people don't realize there's a difference between Jews, Orthodox Jews, and Zionists.
Tell listeners how you see those differences.
Well, you see, until such time as the war was over, all the time the mandate was on, things were fairly, I think, fairly steady. The old Orthodox Jews with the flat hats and the curly hair coming down their sides of their face, they got on reasonably well, cheek by jowl, with their Palestinian colleagues. But when the European war was over, came a gang called the Zionists, and they were the cause of the trouble. We didn't have all these murderers going on before then. So
Wing Commander Bullock, your experience and your voice of authority, I think, has helped set the terms of reference for this debate, and I'm very grateful to you for appearing on TalkSport this evening. And I do hope that there are other former personnel from the British forces serving in Palestine who are listening to this, who will also phone 08704 20 20 20 and get in touch with the show and give us the benefit of their experience too. Wing Commander, thank you very much indeed for appearing on TalkSport, and I do hope that we'll meet when I get back to London.
Right, George, loads of emails agreeing with you, of course, as usual, but I think might be more interesting a couple that don't. Peter Clark from Chingford in Essex has just sent one. Let me read it to you, George, see what you think.
Yeah.
It says, James, I don't take any side with Israel and Lebanon, both as bad as each other. But George Galloway keeps saying that Hezbollah are not terrorists, but nice people, really. Are these the same people who kidnapped Terry Waite and stuck him in a dark cellar for years?
Well, no is the simple answer to that. I mean, I could expand upon it, but no is the simple answer to that.
Okay.
And funnily enough, Terry Waite's on the same side of this debate as me.
He is.
As, for that matter, are John McCarthy, the British newsman, who spent 5 years chained to a radiator in a dungeon, and the Irish hostage who was chained up along with him. All three of them have been opining over the last 33 days a point of view virtually identical to my own, which is that the aggressor here, the cause of this problem, is the unresolved issue of Israel's occupation of other people's land, its seizing of those people as prisoners and hostages, and the statelessness of the Palestinians. James, we keep hearing about the president of Iran threatening to wipe Israel off the map. Now, the first point is, he's not able to wipe Israel off the map because Israel is a nuclear-powered superpower. But Israel is able to wipe Iran off the map. And the second thing is, the only country that's been wiped off the map is Palestine. Go to your globe, go to your atlas, and the word that you will not see is Palestine. Because that country, in which the wing commander served, he was a member of the Palestine forces, of the British Armed Forces. But Palestine no longer exists.
I'll tell you something frightening, George. I interviewed Benjamin Netanyahu the other day, and I asked him, would Israel ever use first strike nuclear weapons? And as all good politicians do, as you know, he avoided the question and went round again. But when I pressed him, he had a little chuckle and he said, James, you will never get me to answer that question, so let's move on.